Yeah.
Did you go to that, Gary, Friday?
There's so much stuff I can't say. There's that.
Yeah, I know. We had a $10,000 budget, I was just making sure we're not hitting that, especially since we just started.
The new one?
The fiscal year.
Season wherever it goes. It's a good program.
Oh, yeah.
There's somebody that needs it. And it'll be a little better. It's on one, working on it all the time. You give us $2,000. Yeah.
As the existing facility.
Get those kids through there and get them to be normal, productive citizens.
That's a good luck job.
Hard work.
You're gonna get a sign in there.
I think let's get something always to put in. I'm gonna leave the animals for an hour and a half every morning.
Really?
Yeah. Fire up about 6. Well, yesterday, you turned that all day. I was done by 8.
Mark, will you kind of go through the whole presentation again, or you just kind of take off where we left off?
Summarize it.
And 3 of them. 3 of them. Horse walker. 4 hours.
Well, I think we're close enough, folks. 9 o'clock, we usually stand up and pledge allegiance and flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Did you have a chance, you guys, look at the minutes?
I did.
Any directions?
Didn't see anything with it.
Both sets you were okay with?
Both sets, yeah. I make a motion that both sets be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Those are when we got a 9 o'clock. We'll let claims go for a minute. Questions on that. Okay, how about Rick Woods?
He would like to carry over 27.5 vacation hours. His anniversary was May 24th. I did talk to him today. He didn't really have anything specific in mind, but I told him usually you do the deadline. So we use the deadline.
Thanks, guys.
Sometimes there's been a deadline, and sometimes there hasn't been.
For the most part, we usually do.
I realize that, yeah. I don't have a problem carrying it over, you know, and I don't know that we've got anything special with the courthouse where you have to, you know, extend it too long. So we normally give them, what, 60, 90 days?
Yeah, about 3 months usually, but you guys.
So, okay, let's extend it by 90 days from
That's only
today.
until August 24th then.
Oh.
Because his anniversary was May, even though he's just bringing it to you since he didn't realize what all he had to do.
You're right on the first November.
Okay.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
November 1st?
Excellent plan, yeah. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just initial, yeah.
Good enough for you.
Yeah, just wanted to be fine. Do you want to do the courthouse grounds?
Yeah.
So the Benton Kiwanis wants to do their 5K run on August 27th. Yep. We've done this one before. And it starts at 8 a.m., so they should be done by noon.
Everything in order for that application.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve that using the courthouse grounds for the Benton Kiwanis Club, August 22nd.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We do have, number 5, Dean brought me the bill for his gutter work.
That was in the plan.
Yep, but I want a separate motion because it's gonna be paid out of ARPA fund.
Okay.
So we're just $7,037. If you guys approve that separately, that'd be great.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You wanna look over the law contracts?
Yeah, once you do.
Yeah.
And then my number 9, with the mental health fund, you know, that fiasco. We created the new fund 0006. Normally, we used to take all the withholdings out of general supplemental. But now they're telling me to take it out of fund 6. So I need to amend the service area so I can change spending authority from general sub from 0006.
They told me.
The region. Because remember, they're reimbursing us back and forth now, so,
Oh, that makes sense.
yep. So that'll be my resolution, and then what I'm gonna do is just take all the spending authority out of that fund 2, put it into 0006.
Double 06.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
I lost count.
went from fund 10 to fund 6.
Okay. All right. And that's my motion, by golly, just like you said.
Second. All in favor?
Resolution, Primer, aye.
Even aye. Okay, Mark. Joel.
We received a farm exemption application from Joel Tice, 7861 21st Avenue, Blairstown. As you probably know, he's building a new house on his land. It's in Leroy Township, section 26. The home is almost completely up. We contacted Mr. Tice in respect to our land use ordinance requiring that Board of Supervisors review the situation in respect to building a new home on the property. We talked about it, at our recommendation, we were trying obviously to get compliance, and we talked about the fact that due to the fact that he has an ample amount of acres there that are in commercial production of farm product, as he listed on his application, he has 115 acres there. We told him that he should apply for a farm exemption, which he promptly did. If you know where the site is, we're South Blairstown, just south of the Pleasantville Cemetery, on the west side of 21st Avenue. And so like I said, he's trying to seek compliance. We're happy with the fact that he has, and so from that standpoint, we'd recommend that it be approved.
So moved.
And I would give that a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for sending that out.
Next time at 9:15, so let's go to the claim. Okay. Rick, you got a couple of questions.
Well, one, Myron isn't here, but I see there was a railroad car purchased. Who were that? We usually use it over waterway or something.
Or which one is that one?
Oh,
The
it's,
vendor.
Gateway Pipe and Supply. From 1905.
Invoice might not tell us what.
Okay.
He's back to work, if you want to call him.
All that.
You want me to email him, see if he'll answer during the meeting?
That's sweet. You know, if he's watching, it's probably.
You just want to know what he's using it for?
And if it is for sure a railroad car. The secondary roads are our car, is what I'm guessing it is.
I'll write him with that.
And my other question, I think it's probably a pass-through, is page 7. It's emergency management, $9,000. Two Rivers emergency, management. It says the EMA hazardous material gap analysis.
Yes, we would.
Is that a study or something?
Yeah. I don't think we do it yearly though.
Well, I haven't seen it very frequently, and so I was kind of wondering what it was, so. I can get a little scout on that, but that's what I have. Other than the fact that I circled the Central Iowa detention, and I see that that's been pretty active here, making sure we're not over our budget or something. Because we just started here.
And, those are hard to judge.
Exactly.
It's like the mentors that you just don't know.
How you gonna
To me, that was it before.
Yeah, that's a good call on computer and I had it all this time.
Those are the three I have, sir. Mary?
For the police fund one. She would use that original one, and remember it was like 10,000 something. And then come back and come up with that amount instead. And then reduce it by. I think it's their last bill to us. Supposedly. So when I send in this tax for July here,
That's gonna be it, right?
we're done. And then it should be. That's what I was told, unless the laser suspicion line. So we haven't figured out that yet.
That hasn't come in yet?
Haven't got the final one on that. So that's the one I'm waiting on. And then I think that would be the last drop.
How are we on funds between the WMA and,
She got the amendment from the Iowa
I
Senate.
understand that, you haven't got it.
No, because I won't, we're still gonna be behind whatever these last ones were. Because we're always behind before I submit. We have to pay it out first and then submit it to get reimbursed.
So we're still a couple $100,000 now.
I think we're all, let me tell you. I'm running a report and see what our fund balance is. And the thing is, I told you that's Fund 30. For the opioid deposit, they wanted Fund 30. They said, well, we're already using another fund.
I'm gonna sign in right.
I got it right here.
Yeah, we're getting 143, 696.
143,
696.
not counting today's.
Correct. Well, it has 107.
Down the town. We got to start on it.
That's not counting today's.
Correct.
Right?
I thought there's
You just sit over here.
Okay.
Well, it's
Tim, how are you?
Questions, so make a motion that we.
Justin, how are you doing?
Hey, Ben.
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jake, how are you? Good.
Bridge replacement near Benton City Park, small wood bridge needed replaced. He was walking, obviously. Does that help?
And I think we get time to do the contracts.
Yep.
I looked them over, I did the math on the, is it the current rate? So, which is probably in the near future. Yeah. So I make the motion that we approve the law enforcement contracts with Norway and Japan.
And I'll list out the amount.
Yes, yes, thank you. Oh, so you need those initials?
No, Tracy signed them.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 9:15, Mark.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mark Greenlees, Benton County's Land Use Administrator. We had a public hearing here 2 weeks ago to discuss an application that we received from Amana Farms Incorporated. This is John McGrath sitting here in case everybody doesn't know John. John's representing Amana Farms with this application process. I gave a technical review 2 weeks ago, and I've spoken with Tracy, our chairman. I guess he'd like me to try to summarize that a little bit because a lot of you folks weren't here last time. For those of you that were here, I apologize. You might hear the same thing you heard before, some of it, but I'm not going to go over the entire report, but I will try to summarize so that those of you that weren't here, didn't hear some of it, understand what the project was all about. Amana Farms is asking for a change in land use of 3 to 5 acres of land to create a commercial fertilizer storage facility. The land is currently owned by Steve and Scott Thompson. The site's located in the southeast quarter, northeast quarter, section 31 of El Dorado Township. I reported that it's approximately 2,075 feet south of Highway 30, and it's along 23rd Avenue on the west side of the road. The commercial fertilizer storage facility would involve the construction of a storage tank that would hold 1.5 million gallons of fertilizer. Amana Farms are a contractor for IFF, that is International Flavors and Fragrances. They basically haul away and land apply some of their effluent stream from that manufacturing process. The state of Iowa does classify that liquid stream as a fertilizer, and as such, basically it is regulated. The fertilizer is said to contain nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and some other micronutrients. Due to the fact that it is regulated, it has to be in a permitted facility, which includes containment around the proposed tank, which is relevant in respect to our land use ordinance. If a site is in production, I always want the board to know that, and I also report what the CSR of that site is. I also reported here 2 weeks ago that that site had been used as a site for the Iowa Department of Transportation, which I think most of you know. The land was used as a borrow pit, and also there was the concrete plant for the overpass project on this site. The CSR of this site, Amana Farms has worked to get it into an area that is classified as a 68 CSR. Let's see here. I had mentioned to the supervisors last time that due to the fact that that site had been disrupted, I had some concerns about it and wanted to see what the NRCS's opinion of that site is in respect to its CSR. That effort kind of fell short in respect to NRCS's response with it, but I found that it became irrelevant anyway because Amana Farms had worked to get the project area all contained within that 68 CSR, what was a 68 CSR area. I don't know what that CSR is now. I don't know that anybody really does. From that standpoint, let's just say that the land was disrupted and call it good at that. What its CSR might be now is anybody's guess. I was not asking NRCS for a map change. I was just asking for an opinion of what they felt the level of disruption was there. And that never came, and like I said, it became irrelevant because the site plan is all contained within the 68 CSR. I reported about surrounding land uses. The surrounding land uses are primarily crop ground. As far as the residence to the north, I reported that's the nearest residence. It's approximately 2,800 feet away. Most of the others were 3,000 feet from this site. I reported that we felt that that was relevant from the standpoint that Amana Farms had made the point that when the material is being loaded or offloaded, there can be an odor. But I also gave a comparison as far as this facility in respect to if there was an inhabited house within the area of a small hog confinement facility. Those distances for a small facility, we normally like to see 1,250 feet, and if it's a larger facility containing 1,000 to 3,000 animal units, we look for it to be 1,875 feet away, and this facility is farther away than that. I reported to the board that we notified by what we do is for those of you that don't understand our notification process, we have to do legal notices in the newspapers, but we are also obligated to notify anyone that's within 500 feet of a proposal. They get what we refer to as a special invitation to the land use hearings. And we notified 4 adjacent property owners. And of course we did place notices in the legal section of our official newspapers of Benton County. I reported that I'd had several phone calls prior to that hearing 2 weeks ago. Most of those phone calls were looking for information, wanting to know about the proposal. I was on site a couple of times and I personally saw individuals. I guess individuals saw me, they stopped by. We had conversation about the project. Some of the concerns that had been expressed to me prior to the hearing were primarily about the road. I asked Myron Prizik, our county engineer, to give us a report about the road due to the fact that it is classified as a level B road. As most of you know, it's not being maintained with any frequency. And I had a very extensive report. Bottom line of that report is that there's problems with trying to maintain that road, particularly in the winter time. And there were conversations, which I'll let John speak to here in a moment, but John talked about their response to how they would deal with those issues. It was pointed out basically that there are several spots in that road where the road bed is lower than the ditches along the side, and you all know what that leads to in the winter, and some of the concerns as far as that goes. Back, I think it was just I don't remember the exact amount, but obviously the state did improve a little bit of that road off of Highway 30 when they were using it, but it stopped and obviously is still a level B road. So I did summarize basically the site meets our CSR standard. There were concerns about the road. There were several people here at the last hearing. For those of you that weren't here, people commented about the project, wanted to know more about it at that hearing. There were some comments about the fact that they didn't really want to see it. They wanted to know what the height of the building was. There was, I think, a question or two about the odor, excuse me. And then, of course, there were comments about the road. Ultimately, there was a comment also made that they did not think that this was a necessary project because of the fact there are other fertilizer companies that do business in our area. At the end of the hearing, it was tabled. That no action was taken that day, in respect to the fact that, our chairman, felt that they'd like to see the other facilities that exist, particularly the Amana Farms Amana, facility, and possibly have the opportunity to speak to folks about that. So in a nutshell, that's what was reported, what happened at the last hearing. I know there's been a meeting, or there was a visit made, and I guess I'll let you take off from there, Tracy, about that.
Okay. Wednesday morning at 8:30, us three supervisors and Haley went down to Manna Farms, and John graciously took us around to the tanks. We looked at the tanks. I was surprised. I guess maybe I didn't do my homework, but they're a harvester, not a galvanized tin tank or something. Then he took us to a field that product was applied on Monday. And then I actually walked around in the field on Wednesday morning when we were down there at 9:30. Yes, there is an odor. At that time, it was not overpowering, like burning your eyes or making you sick, but there is an odor with it. So I guess, can I have one of you guys add to it, or?
Well, if I may, first of all, it was tabled because I wasn't here. I had appointments with my wife, and I had to be there. So I thank you for tabling it, obviously, I really do. With that meeting on Wednesday, it was a public meeting, it was advertised, it was, we actually anticipated other people from the public to show up. And I thought there was going to be a couple people from Iowa County there to yay or nay the project. Nobody showed. No one from Benton County or Iowa County showed. We had Benton Development representatives there, the two gals here, and we went to two different sites, as well as the field that it was injected into. And at this point in time, the only odor there really was came from the pit area, which from what I understand, it's a gravity feed to the pit from the trucks, and then it's pumped up into the tanks. Now, the second site we went to had a filtration system that is used for the odor, and that is when it's pumped in or out. You gotta help us.
Just when it's sitting in storage. It's the same pipe that we use to fill the tank is the one that's used in the filtration system, so we can't use it at the same time that we're filling. But other than that, we hook it up and it creates a positive suction through the head space of the tank and runs it through a filter, charcoal filter.
And so, other than filling or emptying the tank, it goes through this filter system.
Right.
Okay. And that is your intent at this location.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. As far as the field that this was injected into, and I'm not a farm boy, everybody knows that. Worked on them, but that's about the size of it. I did not find it objectionable at all. In fact, the two gals said they couldn't smell anything. I don't know if they weren't out far enough from the vehicles. You know, we were standing outside. Tracy and I did walk on out into the field. It was not objectionable at all, but it had been there for 2 days. So if it had been applied like manure sometimes is, where it's just spread on the surface, I'm sure it would have a different odor, more lingering, but it was injected. So that I was impressed with. As far as waiting for this, it was great to have a little more time to look at things. Unfortunately, it has raised another question, and that has to do whether or not Benton County really has any say in this, or is it going to be superseded by the state of Iowa? Now, I don't think I've showed you guys this, but there's two House rules House Rule 2512 and 2477. I have a copy of 2512, and if I may, I'm going to read just a portion of this. Okay. This was done by the General Assembly of the State of Iowa. It says a county shall not, and part of this goes to fees. County shall not require an application, approval, or the payment of a fee in order for an ordinance to be deemed inapplicable to land, farm buildings, farm outbuildings, or other buildings or structures that are primarily adapted or used for agricultural purposes under this section. It goes on to say land, farmhouses, farm barns, farm outbuildings, and other buildings or structures may qualify under this section independently or in combination with other agricultural uses. And so it just raises a question, you know, a legal question. And this is just one house rule. Kate, have you got 2477?
I
I'd
do.
ask you to bring that.
You did ask me for it. That pertains more to the education type of,
This does.
the 24/7.
Okay.
But the 25 was in there as well.
The point I'm trying to make here is for adopted for agricultural purposes. And it doesn't say whether this is agricultural or is it a commercial ag? You know, there's no definitions here. And so, I don't know if this is, since you're applying it, injecting it, it's an ag purpose as far as I can see. I'm not sure we really have much yay or nay in this whole thing. And I'd kind of like to see a legal response to this. You know, legal counsel. You guys want to see this?
I give them a copy.
Of this
Of
one?
both of them. Yep.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I would like to say at this point, though, just to interject into the record that our department is well aware of those regulations that were adopted or those laws that were passed. Our interpretation of it has been primarily that those are for more or less on existing on-farm uses is what most of those exemptions are applying to. When this all came up, our office, our staff actually talked about this very issue. Now, when we went to the Bowersox property, that's where it came up the first time that this was looked at. I actually brought the question up, does that law affect this? Now, if indeed that would have been Chris Bowersox's facility going onto that land and Chris Bowersox was doing the whole job, that would have been a building on his farm, and I would have felt that that law did apply, it would have been exempt. When John approached us and told us that it was a commercial fertilizer business, basically, that Amana Farms Incorporated is running, I did not feel that that law applied to this particular use. Now, I'm not the attorney for Benton County, obviously, but I've been at this a while. That's my interpretation, and I also have talked to other people that have dealt with this issue since that law was adopted. There's no question that law tends to muddy the waters a little bit in respect to the work that we have to do in Benton County, because our whole land use ordinance is about, is it ag or is it non-ag? And non-ag projects are typically exempt or can get exemptions if indeed it's not real clear. But this, plain and simply to us, was that this is a commercial application. There's not any, I realize that you guys would put it onto the ground, but it's not Steve or Scott putting it on, it's not Steve or Scott's building, which to me would be exempt with that law. This particular situation, if you understand what I'm saying, is different. Because those are typical things that have been in zoning ordinances and in our ordinance for years. we don't go out and ask agricultural people to get a permit to shingle their building or do anything with any buildings on their farms because it's exempt. But that's for existing agricultural operations. So again, that's been my interpretation of it. That's my opinion of it. It could be contested, obviously. The other mechanism, though, for our county is that if the administrative officer's interpretation of the rule and the call for applying for land use change, it can be appealed. Anybody can appeal that decision, and there was no appeal made, and so we ended up going through the land use process. So I just wanted to interject all of that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right or anything like that. I'm just telling you that to me is the difference, and that's what I felt all along with that law. It's primarily about existing farms and their operations and people that are actually doing the farming. I realize it says agriculture related, and I spoke about that when I gave my initial remarks 2 weeks ago, that this is an agricultural related project and perhaps has benefit for the agricultural community. But in respect to the actual issue of whether we have authority or not, I feel our land use ordinance does apply because of the fact that it's technically non-agricultural because it's commercial activity.
You have a question look on your face, like the water got muddier.
Yeah. Well, I was impressed with the, really the lack of smell. There really wasn't much smell to it. And I was impressed with the condition of the sites, with those harvest store structures. They were clean, they were well cared for. The one site is about, I don't know, 3 miles from York Church.
Probably about that, yeah.
And I would bet that if we had a funeral there today, there would be no way anybody could smell it. I doubt if the wind was from the north, and this tank is north of the church, I can't say, but I would bet that you couldn't smell it at the church if you were outside with the funeral. I was impressed with the sites. I wish more of the folks in the room could have come along and been down there.
And again, I agree that today, you know, the only odor was if you got close to the pet. And so I don't know that that's really the concerns. The concerns are probably when they're filling the tank or emptying the tank. It's going to be filled in the winter months, is that correct?
Typical, the reason for these tanks being built is because the product can't or shouldn't be applied in frozen ground conditions. There's a state of Iowa actually has a definition of what frozen ground and all that sort of thing, so we don't apply during frozen ground conditions. So we need storage to put the product in when the ground is frozen. IFF is expanding their operations, which is what creates the need for this. So yeah, what we would typically do would say fill it in January, February, March, somewhere in there, depending on where conditions are best. If this site, for instance, has a tendency to get drifted in, we may fill it first before winter really kicks into gear and gets ugly, for instance. Yeah, we would fill it January, let's say, and then empty it in April. So there's going to be odor when we're filling it. Most of the time, that's a pretty manageable time of the year because everybody's deep and burrowed into their houses. When we're emptying it, there's going to be some odor at that point in time, and for, I'm going to say 5 to 7, 8, 10 days, something like that, there'll be a noticeable odor. We try to get in and get out very quickly when we can, just so we realize that it's better for folks if we just get it over with quickly. So there may be times where, and this would come down to, I guess I would say, local demand for the product, desires for, the Thompson brothers are kind of who helped bring us to the table at this point, but other farmers in the area have expressed interest. If they wanted some product applied in the fall, we could fill it late summer, early fall, and have it ready for October, November applications. So, but we're building it primarily for winter storage. I guess while I've got the floor, if it's okay, last time, I don't know that I provided enough background information. We have been handling this product since 2008. Originally, we built a digester at our cattle feedlot, and originally it was supposed to be one of the key ingredients into our digester. Turns out we got some bad information from an engineering firm, and if any of you are composters, you need about a 25-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio to compost. This product doesn't have enough carbon to be a good compost, nor does it have enough carbon really to be great in a digester. So it didn't really work very well on a digester. But we were already taking it, and we had been land applying, or the previous contractor had been land applying it on our ag ground for, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years ahead of that, and so we were very familiar with it. So we took on land applying it directly to our ag ground and neighbors and so on and so forth. We did build 3 of these storage structures on our farm in 2016. We also have 3,000 to 4,000 head of cattle on feed at any one time. I know the question has come up, why don't you just build this tank down in the Manna? Well, we have 3 of these storage tanks down there already. We also have the cattle feedlot, so we've got, by and large, we've got our fertility needs covered down there. The product, much like livestock manure, has more phosphorus in it than it does nitrogen as it applies to a corn crop. So if you're applying it ahead of a corn crop and trying to meet the nitrogen needs, you're going to be slightly over applying phosphorus. I bring that up is because you typically wouldn't want to apply this product year after year after year after year, because you're going to be building soil, phosphorus in the soil. Now some soils that are extremely deficient, that would be fine for a decade or more. Other soils that are inadequate or near surplus levels, you may only want to apply that once out of every 2 or 3 year crop rotation. So we've got approximately 9,000 acres of row crop ground down at the Manna, with 3 of these tanks again in the feedlot. We don't need the fertilizer down there, so it would be a question of us hauling the fertilizer in and hauling it back out again to facilities and farmers and fields that wanted it. We are obviously cognizant of costs, and so we were looking for areas on hard surface roads, good access, safe access. This site on Highway 30 seemed to meet check a lot of those boxes. So I know last time the quality of the product as far as the fertilizer came up. I've asked Brad Buchanan from Crop Tech Services, who's been dealing with the product even longer than I have, if he might comment about not the product itself and what you know about it, I guess.
Okay. I'm Brad Buchanan, Crop Tech Services out of Cedar Rapids. I'm an agronomist, a certified crop advisor here in the state of Iowa. I've been giving you a little background or history. Is the plant was built in Cedar Rapids under an economic development project 25 years ago. The original name of the facility was called Genencor. Their primary goal is growing enzymes, and the reason they came to Cedar Rapids is they're using soybean meal and corn gluten as their feedstock for feeding the enzymes. And so then after a period of time, 48 to 72 hours, they centrifuge off the enzymes, and they have this slurry left over. And so it basically, way back in the beginning, we tried to actually get it certified as an organic material. Originally, because of the grant that they got, they could just put it down the drain and it went to the sewer treatment plant and that type of thing. Well, that the rebate period ended and they needed to either pay the full price or come up with another option. Well, the other option was, in a win-win situation, was land applying it, because it has tremendous amount of fertility value. And so basically, it was originally my goal or project was to line up landowners to receive this product right directly from the plant. And then as time has gone on, they've increased the size of the plant, and it's just expanded and expanded. And then here 12, 13 years ago, Manna Farms became the contractor to actually land apply the product. We've never seen any consequences of it. Of course, just like even, hog manure applications, yeah, there's times a year you might create compaction or that type of thing, but it is injected. That's the other requirement as part of the DNR is injection, so it's not surface applied, so that minimizes that odor issue. As I said, we've dealt with thousands and thousands of acres that had this product applied over 20 plus years. And Lynn County, Cedar County, Iowa County, Johnson County, Benton, and there were some sites we did out in Benton County here originally when we were looking for places. So, it's a very benign product. It doesn't have any chemicals per se to it. It's a great fertilizer source, and it's basically recycling 101. Just, product in, and then you got a product out, and why not gain value back out of that product? So that's kind of in a nutshell from a product standpoint. Can't speak for the permitting process, but the product itself is a good product.
I'd like to apologize. I told the gentleman last night I'd leave my phone on in case somebody wanted to call in. In case there's two, you get our supervisor line, nobody called. If I may, I'd like to ask the Thompsons a question. Why do you guys want it out there?
Well, with the price of fertilizer going what it is, it was a neighboring farmer came to us and said, hey, my farm's just looking for a place for the fertilizer tank. And so I guess we called John just out of curiosity as much as anything, see what it would entail. And seemed, I know there's hard to find places in Benton County because of our ICSR and things, and that, we thought the site was far enough away from, on a dirt road, nobody's close. It might be a work, and it would be an opportunity to save quite a bit of money. So that was kind of how it started. And the odor, but it's not like a livestock facility where it creates odor all the time. I mean, it's pretty much going to be, wintertime fill and April empty. It seems to me like that'd be, wouldn't bother anybody for but a few days. John, wasn't counting on the county to upgrade the road or get power. There's no power at that site, obviously, either, but, he said if you need something, he'll have to do it or it won't be done. So, I didn't really see any downside, but maybe my neighbors are disagreeing, so.
So, if you see an economic advantage not only for yourself, but for your neighbors as far as fertilizer expenses and costs.
With the land we have there available, we probably use about half of it. So it'd be that much more for whoever, would want it, or, I don't know how we'd set it up or how Manny would decide or who. We hadn't gotten that far, but yeah, the neighbors, any of the neighbors could have access to the other half.
So is there a charge for this or for the injecting of it?
Yeah, we charge a fee for the product applied, and we try to stay typically in that 50 to 75% of the fertilizer's value. Now, the fertilizer may have different value for each grower, just based on the fact that it's kind of like livestock manure. You kind of get what you get. The nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium is kind of, you get what you get. Now, if your farm needs a tremendous amount of phosphorus, but maybe not as much potassium, you might not value the potassium component of it quite as highly as the guy across the road that he needs both the phosphorus and the potassium. So it's not an easy equation necessarily. Every instance it has a bit different value for every grower. But yes, we charge, and we try to be, like I say, 50 to 75% of the cost of the commercial fertilizer, so that folks have a real incentive, and it's a real benefit to them to work with us.
Okay. So those are questions I've never thought of before. You know, this is a truly a commercial enterprise, obviously. And I guess heard from the landowner as to what his opinion is, and why he had it, why he sought after it. You know, it's a problem, you know, because they have met all the criteria of Benton County. From what I can see, that's why I asked for maybe a legal advice, you know, but from what I've read, this would, you know, fall under that House Rule 2512. They're aware that this is on a dirt road, and the Benton County is not going to spend a nickel on that dirt road for maintenance. And if they get stuck, they get stuck. If they get snowed in, they get snowed in. And they got to handle it themselves. Now, the only other thing I'd like to make aware that this dirt road, unless there's gravel, certain distance from Highway 30, once they come onto Highway 30, they're going to track a lot of mud. Is that going to have to get bladed off occasionally? And is the state of Iowa going to be willing to do that? There's still some unanswered questions.
I guess for the Thompson side, well, let's open it up so some of your neighbors can hear, voice their opinion. So you guys over here want to start, we'll just go right around the room.
Well, I'm just here to say that I worked for Manna Farms for 4 years, and I've seen stuff applied, and I don't know, I guess I was born in cow shit, so I'm used to the smell, and it doesn't bother me much. But the yield results it's good stuff, I will say that. And the site, like I said, the site wasn't cleaned up and prepared because you guys was coming out there, that's how they're kept. And it's not gonna become an eyesore, I'm sure of that.
We put it on our headground for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's a big benefit from it. You don't have a smell for only a couple of days and it's gone. So, just
When you apply it, you spray it on top, or do you actually knife it in?
yeah, after that.
Not so much knife, but a rolling
Yeah,
cutter?
rolling cutter, yeah.
Right.
So they've been doing that for 4 or 5 years for us now.
Back to you, John. Do you actually knife it in or not? Like chisel file?
Well, it's a
Or just a
Coulter
rolling color?
type, creates a slot, and then the liquid is injected right into that slot.
Got government wheels behind that?
It does. We use a slightly different configuration for pasture ground so that we don't create quite so much soil disturbance and create like a really rough path. So what you guys saw was a little bit different. When we're in crop ground, we have a little bit more aggressive covering so that it covers the product and keeps it sealed up. We didn't have those aggressive covering ones on there because we didn't want to turn the pasture into a rough washboard type deal.
And as you individuals talk, would you please state your names? You know,
My bad. I know.
No.
I know.
Yeah, I know. I get it. So, yeah.
I'm Don Seidman. I'm a neighbor and friend of Thompson's, and I was just here to find out what's going on. I'm just kind of curious what's going on. So that's why I'm here.
Jim?
You want me to interject?
Go ahead. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Larry Andrews, Benton County Assessor, and I looked up what in Iowa Township, or Iowa County, I should say, but in their case, they have it assessed as ag, partly probably because it's on a larger tract as far as the existing farm and stuff there too. And it's a manufacturing product, correct? That's a byproduct of that
Yes.
process. I don't know that I would look at it that way. So the reason I brought this was because basically the value added as far as ag side of it and stuff would be very little, but as commercial, it would be, and I'm not saying that's a positive, but I'm leaning that way since it's a byproduct and it's in competition with the commercial industry. that I would look at as a commercial one, which would be quite a bit different value than this, because obviously it would be a market type value for the facilities and stuff too. So
Do you have
that,
a ballpark figure on that already?
No.
No.
because I didn't know the product really until I came here today, and I just kind of heard about it last week, and, well, I mean, I heard about it, but I didn't look into it, so that may or may not be very accurate for your ideas, so.
Maybe I better get a better ballpark figure of what it is.
Yeah, maybe. So, but commercial is a little spending. I mean,
It would be a lot different, I mean, there's no doubt about that.
I've got a lot of commercial ground, and wow.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd have to look at information. Basically, it's not that it's gonna be what the cost of the tank is necessarily gonna be, but that's gonna be a kind of a high point, and it's not gonna be, 20% or 15% of what that is like ag would be. So, it would be.
Usually get a 10% rollback, don't you, from whatever the value is?
Oh, for the taxation part of it. Right. Yeah, but not necessarily the value that I'm talking about too. And the value that you talk about too would be, land value wouldn't be a few $1,000s an acre. It would be tens of thousands of dollars an acre potentially, more likely close to whatever your purchase prices and stuff is of that. And the development of that land itself too. So, it's not a guarantee, but yeah, it would be quite different than what your facility is there from what I've heard of the product and stuff too. So it's not a product coming from livestock production. Right. It's coming from, so that, to me, that's a completely different situation. So anyway, and you can contact us too. We can kind of get a ballpark idea too.
Yeah.
Jim?
I would just like to support it because I think the county needs economic development, which we have the two ladies that work on it, and I think the county pays them to promote this, and this seems like a good site to it. Plus, if the fertilizer only costs 50 to 75% of commercial fertilizer, I don't think that should even enter into it that we have other commercial fertilizer. This is a free market economy. Whoever is the best price that farmers think, they should be able to buy it there. And this just gives the farmers another option. So. And it would add some to the property taxes. The supervisors know that I've called them about that a lot, that the county needs to get a larger tax base. Because the costs just keep going up for the county and they don't ever let anything get built here. So that means you and I and everybody else in the county that has property has to pay more.
You want to join my board?
And here's a business that wants to come in and build something, and then we're kind of giving them the runaround, I think, so far. I don't really know what was wrong with the Shellsburg site. I mean, they had to delay it a week to get the guy to come in and be against it.
I think he was within 500 feet of the tank.
Then why didn't you just go ahead and vote it down then?
Wanted to hear from him.
Well, I just think that's the moot point. It seems like it's anti-development is the way I take it. So, I just think it should be approved and not given any more runaround. So.
You, ma'am?
I'm Jill Bridgewater. I'm 2227 4th Street. I'm about half a mile as a crow flies from the proposed site. I hear that you say there's not a lot of smell. I grew up on hog confinement farm. I know smell. I got it. My concern is you say it's only partial time of the year, certain times, but we also know that you may pull it out if there's demand for it. So, and then you're saying it's only maybe 3 days, but if you're doing 3 days and then another week later you're doing another 3 days, that smell will be there more than not. We also have a facility south of town that does emit an odor that provides jobs, development in the county, which is wonderful. How many jobs will this provide within Benton County at this site? Is none. So we're
only the truckers.
Yeah. So for me, yes, it is a personal issue that is so close to my home that I don't want it, honestly.
I guess I don't want to call it into question, but I kind of ran the numbers. I don't think there's any homes within would you say a half a mile?
We're, as a crow flies, probably within a mile.
Okay.
We're definitely under a mile.
Yeah, I think they're under a
Yeah.
mile, but I didn't think there was anybody that was any closer than,
I think 2,800 feet was what I found was the closest. Other ones were 3,000.
I question, my name's Jim Bridgewater, I question how many trucks will be going southbound on this dirt road. We all know smells travel more than 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet. We're 4 miles from the dairy, we get the dairy smell once in a while. The site, yeah, it was a high suitable corn rating before the state got involved with it. So who's to say that corn rating isn't going to be coming back in a few years of what it was? I did not know anything about none of this until these last few days about it. So for the first meeting, I think there's quite a few people here that had no idea this was going on and are opposed to it. Biggest concern is smell. For instance, you supervisors went down and looked at that and walked out in the field. How much was applied to that field on that Monday you said it was applied? You know, how much was? Sure, we could dump a little on there, but, and it's not gonna smell much, so there's just a lot of questions, and I'm definitely against it.
In the application of the field, I don't think they anticipated us coming to that field prior to where they would have cut back the application, on the application. You know, it was just kind of a, oh, by the way, scenario.
We set the visit up on Monday.
Can you show us, you know,
We officially set the visit up on Monday for Wednesday.
to look at
So-
the tank?
yeah,
Well, so, but
I
the
didn't know
visit
you were coming to look at
in
this.
general, we didn't, you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
there wasn't an anticipation that we
Right.
were coming at all.
And as far as I know, they didn't know we were gonna go to the field or the second tank.
Right.
You know, and so
Right.
we just didn't wanna go to the first one they took us to, so. Not that we didn't trust you, it's just,
You're
Yeah.
doing your due diligence.
Yeah.
Fine.
I feel property values will eventually go down too if this becomes, how many times are, like you said, how many times are they gonna fill it if they start selling it more and more, they're gonna build more tanks, you know? So, truck traffic, how many trucks does it take to fill 1.5 million gallons?
225. So typically, it'd be about 18 to 20 trucks a day when we're filling.
And how many days?
20.
So
20
in
to
20
30.
days, you're gonna be smelling it. Wasn't that, and that's just filling. So 20 days unloading, I mean, it adds up. A lot of people didn't know anything about it.
I also second that. I'm here to get information. I live down the dirt road about 2 miles south, and I'm concerned about the traffic. Don't know which way it's heading. Also the smell. We live 4 miles or 3 miles from the dairy and we smell that. So I'm here to collect information because I just found out about this.
and you are.
I'm Tracy. You're wrong. Sorry.
Rod Bridgewater, live up the road, I'm on 23rd Avenue, I'm north of Highway 30, a mile and a half. So I'm 2 miles away from the site. That's my concern, is how many turns is this tank gonna have in a year's time? You know, and just how much traffic, and if they can't, if there's gonna be this umbilical cord applied, is that what you're hoping for? That you won't have to be put on a truck again to get hauled out, or will it all of a sudden get hauled 12 miles away and 200 trucks are coming up my road? That's where I'm at with it, and how many turns a year with this tank? I mean, if it's a commercial thing, they're gonna wanna do it as much as possible, I'm
Well,
sure.
if I could respond to the amount of times turning it per year, and of course you're gonna have to take my word for it, whatever that's worth at this point. But The product is 1% nitrogen, anhydrous ammonia is 82% nitrogen, so it's a very, very dilute. So handling this stuff multiple times really is not our benefit. Our goal is to never handle this product twice if we can. So we don't want to go in and storage, out of storage, in and out, in and out, in and out. Our goal every day of the year, if we could, would be go from the plant to a field, never touch it again. So I don't see us turning this tank many, many times per year. We would be going backwards economically to do that. So there would be the wintertime is basically a guarantee. The summertime is a question mark. If we had an extremely wet type of summer where we weren't, a lot of times we're going to hay ground or small grain ground or whatever. If there are times when we can't go to ground, we might be putting some product into storage in the summertime, but that is not our game plan. We would be going backwards to do that. So that's my response. You have to take my word for it or not.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, Jim, you brought up a point that was brought up last time and I failed to catch it, and you mentioned it again about the possibility for more tanks. Their application was submitted to be 1 to 2 maximum. And so our expectation would be is if they needed to expand, they'd be back in for review. So if indeed they were approved, their application was for 1 to 2 tanks on that particular site, 3 to 5 acres of land. And so the expectation is they stick with 1 to 2 tanks, no more. If they said, I want a 3rd tank, apply. Come see the board, another public hearing.
They're both gonna be the same size.
They would be. The drawing that we originally submitted to Mark had the 2nd tank, which may never happen, slightly bigger, but I asked the engineer to downsize it just so the containment can be a little bit smaller. I'll bore you with some of the details, but in order to stay on that 68 CSR, that is a rather narrow band of soils, and the containment gets really weird shaped, and so it'll be a pain for the Thompsons or us or whoever to mow around it. So we're trying to do what we can to square it up a little bit. So, and one of the things to do with that was just to have 2 tanks that are exactly the same size. The state of Iowa requires that the containment be 20% larger than the largest tank. So now if they're both the same size, it has to be 20% larger than a 1.5 million gallon tank. So same size.
I've got a question. Do you have any spots down at Amana that have more than 1 tank?
We don't, and I wish now that I would have had the engineering done for a 2nd tank should the need ever arise, because it really doesn't cost any more to build it that way from the get-go, but it would now. But as I said, we don't have need for additional fertilizer down there. So.
And how far apart are the tanks down at Amana? The closest ones?
I'm going to say they're 4 or 5 miles apart. Each one.
It really don't make a lot of sense to put a 2nd tank here at this location, in my opinion, because if you've already got the ground covered in this location and you put a 2nd tank, you're going to have to truck it further whenever you empty the tank.
Yeah. We wanted to be very open and honest through the application process and apply with it for 2 tanks being a possibility. That may never happen, and ultimately if we wanted to locate and the demand was there, another tank in Benton County, it probably would make sense to locate that 2nd tank somewhere else with a whole different facility, because again, this product is very dilute, very watery, can't make any money hauling it around, and so it would probably make sense to again locate a 2nd tank somewhere else. We just wanted to have that option, I guess, if need arises. So.
Well, if the source is coming from Lynn County and you're trucking to Benton County, why aren't you sourcing in Lynn County?
Building a tank in Lynn County?
Yeah.
We looked at that, and I'd be all right honest about it. I thought it was going to be much more difficult and expensive to engineer it for Lynn County, because they for instance, want you to have prove that you're not going to have light pollution in the middle of the night, that your lights won't be offensive to other people, that you're going to have visual corridors with trees and plantings, you're going to have runoff containment things, and I got to be honest, I didn't want to mess with all that.
But it's okay to do that here.
Yeah, I can look at it.
I'm just trying to go by what the laws are.
State Junction down there, there's 20 some lights down there lighting that intersection up. It's like, why do we need to that kind of light. They're all them type of things are in this equation too.
Would any of the supervisors want to live near it? I'll ask all three of you. Would any of you guys want that place?
And would Benton County do air quality control to check to see what the air quality is like?
We don't have those ordinances, obviously. If we did, we wouldn't have half of the hog confinements or dairy, production going.
But this is
because,
commercial.
like you said, those are commercial as well. As you indicated, you're about 4 miles from that dairy. Is that what you said? And you smell it on a windy day. And that's whatever day it may be, not just the spring. Hog confinement 4 miles south of Benton. I live on the south side of Benton. Windy day, I smell it. Would I want one near me? Well, if I could say that I could only smell it here when my windows are shut for the most part, wouldn't be so bad. Walk outside, mow my lawn, and swear it's across the road. So, we live in Iowa. Iowa's the best kept secret in the nation, in my opinion. And we do have, winds that blow. And not just the racial winds, but, we have nice gentle breezes and they carry odors from time to time. Some of the things to deal with. I don't know that we're going to have in Benton County, ordinances to have light pollutions from security lights or, noise ordinances. Yes, they don't want you to run your jake brake as you're coming into town. Have you ever seen anybody get a ticket for it? No. So a lot of those ordinances, noise, light, odors, we don't have, we never will have, and never's a long time. So I can't see it in my lifetime anyway. So, but what I want in my backyard, I've already got the odor coming from a hog confinement, just like you folks have from the dairy farm. So.
But you don't like it.
No, I deal with it.
Okay.
If I didn't want to deal with it, I'd move someplace else. It's very true. So, yeah. And they've done their due diligence. The problem we've got as supervisors, we got an ordinance. They've done everything for that ordinance. From what I've read on the House file, it doesn't separate commercial ag from farm ag. It just doesn't happen in this House file. It's got an odor to it. So does hog confinement, so do dairy farms. They're on a mud road, and when it rains, they got to deal with it. That county's not going to put a nickel at it. So, and they're very well aware of that. If they want the road improved, we have a policy where the adjacent property owners have done a 50-50 cost share to improve the road. And that improvement might be getting rid of that 6-foot embankment so it doesn't drift. So, like it or not, our backs are against the wall. We got a lot of, excuse my French, pissed off people about odor. Where do we draw the line? Do we draw it just for this, or do we draw the line for dairies and hog confinements?
I've got a question.
Sure. And you're Ray?
Right, yeah. Over the weekend, I didn't realize this, that practically I found that nobody really knew about it. I know you said by law you had to have it in the paper. Which paper was it in?
It was in the Cedar Rapids Gazette's official newspaper. The Benton Times and the Eagle are official newspapers.
See, I haven't talked to anybody that's seen it in the paper. Maybe there's somebody in here that has seen it in the paper. I never seen it.
That's not unusual, Ray. There's legal notices in county business all the time.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that I talked to yesterday, since I realized that, I talked, you know about this? Most people I talked to didn't know about it. They said, we didn't hear about it, so I called. And a few people that we know today aren't here, that would like to have been here. And my next thing is back to the county, as far as what it's doing for the county, other than some maybe taxes. As far as employment, there's not gonna be basically anybody employed from Benton County for the facility. And it looks to me like you're making one family or possibly a couple satisfied. Manor Farm's making money. And how many people are you gonna tick off? Do we need to have a petition? How many names to see how many people are offended by it? Do we need a week to get that? How many names do you need? Just to see what's out there. Because I don't know for sure. I mean, I was just surprised nobody knew about it.
I'm afraid it'd have to go deeper than a petition. You'd almost have to go and change an ordinance, a land use ordinance. Because they get qualified, they've done their due diligence. And 90% of the people in here don't want to hear it, but that's kind of what's been going, you know?
Benton County Supervisors.
Hi, I was wondering if there were any requirements to speak at the next supervisor meeting, or if that's open to the public, or how that works.
We have it open to the public for public comments. Depending on if you want them to take action, we would post it as an agenda item.
Okay, and when would you, like, how do I go about that, or when would you need that?
We need it
submit it, or who do I submit it to?
You can contact the auditor's office. We post it within 24 hours. So we will post next Monday morning. Yeah.
Okay, so I contact yourself, auditor's office, it posted on Monday, Thursday.
What's it in regards to?
We would like Benton County to step in line with like other counties in Iowa and not ban broadly ban behavior.
Okay. All right. Can I get your phone number and I will give you a call back?
Yeah, my number is 2244.
All right, I will give you a call back.
He works with the state.
All right, we're currently in a board meeting right now, so I will give you a call back. Thank you.
So the good news is, it wasn't so, you know.
Yep. Okay, I'm Barb Robinson. I am on 74th Street, real close to the dirt road. And I can just envision, because I lived through the construction of the overpass, is all these trucks are gonna come off at the overpass instead of waiting to get on the gravel road. And so then I'll have a lot of truck traffic by my gravel house on a gravel road. And who's gonna control the dust control, because the state was terrible about thinking about the neighbors with dust control, with trucks coming off and on. And another thing I'd like to know, who's gonna own the ground under this? Is it gonna be commercial zoned or industrial zoned property? And are you then opening this area for commercial zoned property? Because, you know, once it's zoned commercial, it seems like more property will open up for commercial property. And right on Long Highway 30 in Benton County, there hasn't been too much commercial, you know. Will a truck stop come along here? I'm just thinking of once you start, and so will the Thompsons actually still own the ground, and so the taxation will still be at the farm ground rate, or will Amana own the ground where they're putting their tanks? That's questions I don't have. I just heard about this over the phone last night, and I'm curious as to what it is.
Amana would own the ground. We would purchase the 3 to 5 acres needed for the project, and from the sound of it, it'll be zoned commercially and taxed.
Actually, the answer to the zoning question is that they've applied for what's called a new non-agricultural use. We do not have zoning as you're familiar with it in some of the communities in Lynn County, for example. This would be reclassified, if it were approved, for a new non-agricultural use, but our ordinance says that it's for a specific intended use. So if they change 3 to 5 acres, that land is reclassified as non-agricultural for the use that they applied for. So if that use went away for whatever reason, that parcel is sitting there, tanks are gone or removed or whatever, that still would require a review, a land use change, because it's a new non-ag use would be proposed. So it's not going to be rezoned like, a lot of people understand zoning. It'd be approved for a new non-ag use specifically for this particular use, nothing else. The Two Joe's Farm was a good example. They came in some years ago and reclassified that so they could do their little town thing that they did. Okay, everybody says that's commercial property. Technically, that is not commercial property. If I wanted to go there, if I bought it and wanted to put a flower shop there for whatever reason, I'm going to apply to the Board of Supervisors for my flower shop because that's a new non-ag use. That is different than what was applied and approved back when it went to public hearing and before the supervisors before. So there's always that aspect of it that they're going to get a new, if they are approved, they get a new non-ag use classification there. It'd be for that particular use. The taxation classification could be, it could be commercial, it could be something different. And that's one of the problems sometimes folks have in our county understanding what we're actually doing here, because I might say that it was agricultural parcel and Larry might have something else on it, and that's just the way that it goes here. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other use would have to be approved if it ceased being that use. Doesn't necessarily mean the whole area then gets opened up as commercial. It's just that spot.
But then the taxation.
The taxation is
commercial property.
it could be looked at as commercial, yes.
That's true. For sure, yes.
Yes, right.
From the information I have, I'd lean that way.
So it's commercial business.
Yeah, we,
Basically.
Yeah.
And it's under the 70 CSR. And other.
I had another, okay, so I'm just trying to figure this out, because, so Thompsons are selling the ground to Amana Ag. But Thompsons have a guarantee that they're gonna be the first ones to get half of the product, the other farmers, or is it gonna be open for the price? Thompsons are saying they need to use, they have enough ground for half of it. So I'm confused as to.
Well, I think that'd be a contractual agreement.
Is that the way it's working?
I'm just summarizing that if that is contractual agreement, that would be between them, I would imagine, wouldn't have to be public.
No, not our business.
Well, I'm trying to see the benefit.
Well, they indicated the benefit for them personally was the cost of the fertilizer, is that correct? So and then they thought the benefit for their neighbors also in the lower cost for the fertilizer. So that was why I asked the question, why. So
is it for sale to the public?
Yes.
Well, I don't think they can put it on their land every year because of the phosphorus would get too high, is my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like hog manure.
You can't put it on every year. So, they might use it all in 1 year, or half of it in 1 year, but then they might have to wait a few years to use more.
Kind of depends on where the soil is.
Yeah, soil levels, soil test levels to begin with. So I don't think that it's just a benefit for the Thompsons, I don't think.
Okay, thanks for that information.
Nobody wants to smell. Just like my wife's got a hairdresser, hair shop south of that. Can you imagine how thrilled they're gonna be coming in and smell that on a particular day, even if it's 2 days,
So we get smells from one side, we'll get one from the other side, and all around, and we'll have some from all different times of year that the smells will come through and we got
We
to
don't even
regulate,
know.
but how many more smells?
I'm Kevin Gilbert. I live just north of 30 on 23rd Ave. Got my new house facing the south and was having coffee this morning, looking out and I can see the windmills down south of Marengo. That was my view, why I built my house like that. And now you're gonna stick these things right in my view. So I'm going from what, 30 miles down to 3/4? I would have built it somewhere else or faced it a different direction.
He was there first.
The unfortunate part, and I was looking to be the bad guy because I'm the one that seems to be talking, is the county ordinance. And we didn't set this up. This was set up, this ordinance, 33, 35 years ago. Is that correct, Mark?
1986.
Okay. And it was the Board of Supervisors at that time that approved this ordinance. You know, I've brought it up numerous times that it needs to be looked at because of things like windmills and solar energy, you know, fertilizer plants. And it all goes back to, well, as long as it's 70 and above, we got no problem.
Who do you represent, the minority or the majority of the people?
I represent the people and I represent the county ordinances. Okay, now, none of us like smell. None of us. But we don't have an ordinance prohibiting smell.
You couldn't have an ordinance prohibiting smell anyway because the state of Iowa doesn't regulate it, so that you couldn't do it.
Yeah, you know, I understand this wholeheartedly, and I feel like I'm being the bad guys. You know, this is something that Amana Farms and Thompson's have agreed to. Benton County Supervisor gets thrown in the middle of it, and we're the bad guys.
So the rest
What the
of
hell?
us live with the consequences of everything that comes from this.
From two parties.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we have to.
And
deal
we
with the
have to
consequences.
be the bad people because we have an ordinance
And
to
there's
enforce.
nothing we can say, is it?
There will be costs to the county for maintaining the road, because that road's gonna, if they go south to certain farmers, they're gonna go south on the dirt, and that road is gonna take a beating.
And
But
what is the county ordinance number 5 says Benton County will not maintain a level B road.
Well, it's no different than down there at Lordstown when they put that dairy and started using that dirt road. We farm right along there. Hell, we can't even get a semi down there no more. I mean, this road's gonna end up.
Yeah. And so does Benton County maintain that road?
I don't know if I've ever seen it go down there.
Obviously not, if you can't even use it.
Yeah.
So you're gonna build a facility and then not be able to get a semi down there later on?
Yeah. I mean,
That's
we
their
farm
choice.
down dirt road. I mean, how we gotta have to go around this 4-mile section so we can try and come in from the other way. I mean, I'm Jake Nolan. That's my biggest concern. I mean, we farm all over there as far as transportation.
No, and I get it, Jake. I really do. And if they come from the south, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more dirt to cover from the south corner up to that site. I don't know why the hell they'd want to travel that if it's muddy.
She brought up a very good point. They don't want to sit there and wait. There's so much traffic on 30, you know that.
Are you
That's
worried
right
about
where one
safety
lane's going to 2
right
lane
there?
right now.
Yeah.
They're gonna get off on 218.
They're gonna go get off it too.
They surely will.
And as the owner of a trucking company and my employees, I can mandate to my employees the routes they will take. I have that privilege.
Whether they listen or not, it's not.
That's very true.
Yep, I just don't say it's fake. I mean,
And they don't have to have a job. If I keep getting complaints about the hazards they're performing, you know, or not going to designated route. So, yeah. It's like driving past the scale. I tell my guys, you go buy a scale, you get picked up for something like a logbook violation, damned if I'm gonna pay for it. So,
As for the trucking, you're planning on coming off 30, right? And then making the circle by the tank and coming right back up 30.
Correct, that was part of the appeal for me, was the fact that there's a turn lane going down there.
So they won't even be going by your house, Mark.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
But it has to get offloaded to some farm somewhere.
And it might be,
So it might go past her house, it might go past my house, it might go past her house, might go past her house.
Tracy, the first day they started hauling rock and sand in there, they were coming down to Watkins Road a mile south and coming on 74th Street clear over dirt road. Truck after truck after truck. And like Barb said, the dust control was not there. And there, we were lucky, there was no accidents, nobody got hurt.
And the house was covered in lime.
Same
Right.
as south too, they were coming past our house.
Right.
And if
And
there's
don't tell me they
20 days or 20
aren't gonna come
trucks.
down the dirt road every time.
I can tell you, I live west of the Blairstown Blacktop a mile, and if in fact we needed fertilizer and they had fertilizer, we'd come south on the dirt road, we wouldn't go up to Highway 30. That's where all the stuff's gonna come out of, it's gonna go south. Now, I'm not gonna say that nobody will take 30, but
gotta go past our house.
30's getting really bad. There's people on there 70 mile an hour today on the 2-lane. I know.
Well, I agree with you there.
So when you haul to the farms, are you hauling out there with semis?
Typically, yes. I mean, if it's close enough that we can drag line, that would be advantageous for everybody, but typically we're hauling back out with trucks.
Okay.
Because there's only, you know, a drag line can go miles and miles, I guess, if you need to, but you would have to have many fields, out the direction of the drag line before it'd be worth setting that up. So.
Yeah.
We'll drag line when we can.
Yeah. So you'd be traveling south on the dirt road.
If that's where people want the product, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I don't know how much we need to beat this thing to death. You know, from what I'm hearing from the folks in here, they'd like to see the ordinance changed. You know, to include anything that grows crops, not a 70 and above. You know, that's what I'm hearing. And so the way our ordinance reads right now, I don't know how we can deny this. Whether it's a smell or a light, you know, infiltration from headlights, whether it's beating up a dirt road or what, how the heck do you deny this?
You put up with lights when we're out in the field in the spring and the fall. You hear anybody complain about that? Putting up with tractor and combine lights in the spring and fall.
Right.
Is anybody bitching about that? They can't, the light, tractor
Nobody
lights coming in the
bitches about
window.
semi-traffic coming out of the fields with their lights at night.
Well,
You know, so why are they gonna bitch about semi-traffic and headlights going to this place?
it's gonna be more, right?
Oh, more. Yeah, more in a short period of time.
He's talking
Short, in a
20
short
loads a
period of time.
day coming in
And
and
you
going
get
out.
harvest that is a short period of time. I get it. So, you know, again, Benton County ordinance set up in 1986 or whatever the heck it was, states 70 and above. This is 68. What do you do?
Move. Better review it again.
Yeah.
Move my business to a different county.
Yeah. Because it's,
Because I don't wanna look at it.
you follow with
Wrecking the view of my brand new house. 30 miles to 3/4 of a mile, come on.
I get it. I do.
Yeah.
I understand. There's a lot of brand new houses out in the county.
Yeah.
So,
Start all over.
and you know, unfortunately, you can be within 1,875 feet of a hog confinement with a brand new house.
Mhm.
It's not far enough.
It's not far enough. Yeah, I agree. 4 miles isn't far enough some days.
So why don't you guys put it, if you wanna be right on 30 with access, why don't you put it in Thompson's backyard?
There's a nice flat spot right where they moved that, where
Yeah.
that machine shed left over there.
From what I understand, that's in the state right away. part of that?
Sell them a little more ground.
If CSR doesn't change, I mean, there's not any low CSR ground there now. Obviously, the land is not the same, but if we can't quantify that, why, there's no way there's nothing there. I think the building site that was there is mostly road now, so.
What was the CSR before the cement plant went there?
In that spot, 90 and 75. But where they're at is the old waterway area, which is an 11B soil, and that's a 68. And that's where they're, as I said, that's where they were confining it to.
So this site where your machine shed is, or was, or whatever, is part of that under the right of way for the state of Iowa?
Not what's left there, no.
Not
But
what's
the building, I mean, they took part of the building site to add 2 lanes. I mean, we were beside the original 2 lanes, and so they, I don't know, however many feet, 300 feet or whatever, they took away. Well, that took, you know, all the last row of trees in the grove and the house, the barn, and so there's.
What is the acreage?
I don't know how much is left there.
Okay.
But it's not very much.
Yeah. So even if we said that might be a different location or an alternative location, and even if we did change a couple acres that's above 70 CSR, does that change the smell?
Gets it a lot
closer to people want it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So does the wind when it's blowing in the right direction.
Maybe they
And the wind's gonna blow.
Well, if it's gonna happen anyway, why can't
Comes
it
100
happen closer than that?
some odd
It's gonna
feet
take
down.
advantage of it.
Miles
Maybe they got
across.
room by their grain bins.
You guys wanna change anything that's above 70? That's a can of worms that you're gonna open, and then you will see it turn down. You know, guys, speak up. I feel like I'm the only supervisor here that's.
Well, yes, I look at the Senate file. You just handed to me this morning. I'm no attorney. I would like to have the county attorney explain it to me in English that I'd understand.
Okay.
Because when I read this 2 different ways, I just can't fathom it. You know, one minute I read this, that if somebody wants to build a house and they're actively engaged in farming, well, they don't even need to see mark according to this. Well, that would change our ordinance and everything that we got.
Unless it has to do with drilling a well and septic equipment.
Right. Like I said, I'm no attorney. I don't, and this was signed the June 1st of 2020 by the governor, Charles Snyder, Megan Nelson, Pat Grassley, Speaker of the House. And I just got that this morning. So I don't, it's typical, not to be slammed, lawyer language, where it says one sentence and the next sentence it contradicts itself, in my opinion.
So if we got a legal opinion, it would be whether or not the county, the Board of Supervisors, has any say in this property or not.
Correct.
And if we do, we're still at the same impasse.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we've been beating this thing
Yes, we have.
long and hard. I really do. And I was afraid this day would come.
I did too. Well, as for the Thompsons, I think you can kind of see what I've been dealing with for the last week.
Well, you know,
And I don't want to cause a rift in the community.
Exactly. We didn't intend to. I hear you're worried about the smell in sight. I guess, you know, in my opinion, you know, it's about as far away as you can get from anybody as far as sight.
You
It
can't
looks like
stop
ours. It looks like a flurry store that have been around, and so it's not going to be in anybody's face.
You can stop it, Steve.
Well, but
Well,
I
I
see
see
Kevin's
that.
face, there's nobody Rich Leslie's face.
And I'm kind of getting there. But, you know,
Not
the
just
smell,
the smell either.
the smell is not going to be like a livestock facility. It's going to be in the winter time, they're filling it when you're gonna smell it, and in the spring it's gonna be, but maybe I'm just, I still have livestock, so maybe I'm a little more, attuned to, smells, and livestock has largely disappeared, so you guys, you're more sensitive to it, like somebody that moved out of town. So I thought we were far enough away from everybody that maybe it wouldn't matter, but it looks like I was wrong.
More to life than money.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I didn't think it'd be a big impact. From, what John says, people that get it like it, and save some money, so maybe it's all right.
Are we open for business in Benton County?
Maybe.
Oh, so we can smell business.
Anything 70 and below, yes.
I understand, but we've
According
had
to the
a
ordinance.
lot of things come up, right?
Well,
And we've had to overlook them because of the ordinance. This meets the criteria. It's money in a large investment into our county. So my question is, are we open for business? And please don't shoot the messenger. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just doing my job, so.
Depends on the business.
Huh?
Depends on the business.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know that. Because young lady back here mentioned truck stop. Now, would you be opposed to a truck stop in at that 68 CSR location?
That's a whole different can.
No, it isn't. No. It's not. You said depends on the distance. So, Ray, I mean, that's gonna create traffic. And if they came in and wanted to redo the road.
This type of land, they're going to do it in some way or another, and expensive.
The problem we've got with the 70 and above is you go north of Benton onto some sand ground, and they can still come in on the highway. Now we just moved the problem from one spot to another, one set of neighbors to another set of neighbors. So
We have to excuse ourselves. She's got here at 11 o'clock, and get there before I'm in trouble and before it stinks, I guess you'd say.
You're in trouble already.
thanks for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, in respect to our ordinance, I'm hearing that, well, the only criteria that they have to pass is whether or not it meets the CSR standard, and that isn't necessarily so. There's other factors that have to be considered, and the ordinance goes through a whole litany of things. It talks about the environment, wildlife, everything. But one of them is does the proposed use, due to the fact it's strictly an agricultural land preservation ordinance, it says, does this use, is it going to materially alter the overall stability of the land use pattern? And is it going to interfere with existing farm operations? That's two of the factors that you have to see before you approve any land use change. And so, but it also says that you're to consider public protest. And if indeed that is the case, which is, this has always been something, to my mind, which is kind of the problem with our ordinance, but it says that you have to pass any consideration with it to, you have to have a 66% vote. Well, obviously when you have a 3-member board, that's going to happen anyway, but there are some other things to consider. But yes, CSR has been one of our overriding factors, and it does meet that criteria. But there's also other things to consider. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind.
So when Mr. Primer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So when you're saying it meets that criteria, Mr. Greenlee's saying there are other considerations. So you can't base your vote on it meets the CSR criteria. That's it.
Right.
And that's
some
what
of
I'm
those,
hearing you
some of those
say.
other criteria has to do with driveway and line of sight, things that we look at constantly. Is it, it's ag related, so it's kind of normal for that area. There's things to, look at. I think what Tracy was trying to get at is that he wants the legal opinion. It'd be nice if we could get the county attorney to look at this. I don't, really like the idea of delaying it, that maybe this is, something we need to do is get a legal opinion.
Don't know. What do you gentlemen want to do?
I'd like a legal opinion.
Gary?
That way I know where we stand.
I agree.
Then make a motion.
So move them. I'll move that we table this till
A week?
or two.
What? Can you,
Talk today?
No, we have not talked in today.
yeah, we don't know what time frame he's got,
Yeah.
so I don't know if a week is sufficient.
It don't sound like it's a real big deal for a man if they're not gonna fill it till it freezes.
Well, we got,
But they gotta get at it. Yeah, to put it up. You gotta have time to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's way behind, you know, based on where this was all progressed to. So it's kind of unfair to hold off again.
So when was this supposed to be, were they gonna be done for this fall?
It's supposed to be built by the time the ground freezes.
Yeah, I'm
Every day that goes by, that becomes less of a reality.
I'm not for or against this, you're just delivering something.
How long does it take, how long did it take to put up the other facilities?
3-4 months.
I'll just interject. Timeframe might be a lot different now, because those were in 16 or 17, correct? Yeah. You know, things don't go up like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's try and get it done next week if we can.
Well, the agenda's all done, it's just, you.
Let's do it
For days.
with the county attorney, if he can get it ready.
Or maybe give them a call.
Let me ask a question. Are you just looking for a ruling on whether you really have authority to make this decision?
Yeah.
And if you are ruled that you have authority to make this decision, you've got to make a decision then, don't you?
Right, right.
And if we don't have the authority to make the decision, the state's already made it.
See, right now, I kinda feel like Rick got thrown in on the bus. He did all the talking on this deal. Everybody's been calling me for the last week about this deal. I really wanted the Thompsons to know what I've been dealing with for a week. Now, I met with you guys Wednesday. I was impressed with the deal. My problem in my heart is that if I say, yeah, go ahead, build a baby, and that thing stinks, that it's overpowered, you know, which it wasn't when I was there. But if it does happen, I have to look at these people all the time. I live with them. I live down by them. That's my problem.
That's not
That could be my problem too. I really don't think it would be that big a deal, but if you build it when it's too late, if it does stink,
Correct.
then I got enemies around it.
Right.
That's not what I want either.
This is my problem.
But that's why you're the supervisor. You're supposed to take that responsibility. If you can't handle people being upset at you, maybe you shouldn't be a supervisor.
You gonna take his place?
I don't think I'd get elected because I don't agree with most of the stuff they do. They shut the county down. They know I've called them all the time about Casey's and other stuff. And that, you know, you can always make excuses. I live on the highway east of Van Horn. I could say, well, I don't like the water tower there, or I don't like no one's running their trucks by all the time during harvest. But it's just part of living in Benton County or in Iowa. It doesn't bother me. You get used to it. It's their economic development. Look at how it helped Van Horn, say, is something like that. This is going to help the county, not just Thompson's. That's what I think you're trying to frame it. It's just going to help Thompson's, and I just don't see that. And I did say that if this didn't work out, that I had talked to John that I might have property that might meet the definition on an old railroad. But he didn't think it would because it would slop over onto higher than 70 CSR. But about living with it, I wouldn't mind it if it was across the road from me. You just get used to it.
Talk to him.
I already have talked to him.
Talk more.
But
persuade him.
I don't want to step on Thompson's toes. I'm acquaintances with them too, and that seems like the best place down there anyway.
Well, and I know we have a motion on the floor. Even moving it from the dirt road over to the site along Highway 30, I don't think that's gonna do anything with the smell.
No.
It doesn't change
It'll
anything.
hide the tank, that he won't have to see the tank,
That's pretty much it.
but you're still gonna have the open.
We're still gonna have it. And so and if they fall out of an agreement, it could go someplace else. And we're gonna have the same thing just over and over. I like the idea of getting a legal opinion, especially, I've read 2512 over and over. It's 2477 I have not read.
I don't think 2477 pertains to this
But you said that
particular.
was more educational.
It's educational.
Let me tell
Yeah.
you. So,
I don't think it does at all, but again, you guys can defer to your county attorney.
So, you get a motion on the floor, the gentleman will, if this is delayed, we have to give him an answer. It's just the way it is. This isn't right, that it be drug out so long. You got a motion to, get a legal advice on this from our county attorney. I see that within our rights, the board's rights, and I will second that motion.
Yeah, I'm gonna call Bill.
I don't want this thing strung out. He really, county attorney, who's up for election, needs to really give this thing some due diligence, get it done. If we could have it done by next meeting or before, it's called a special meeting.
So you don't want me to set the timer or anything?
No, not
I
yet.
don't think you better.
Call for a vote.
Do you understand our come from with this? And I mean, this is it. This, you gotta draw a line in the sand. Get his opinion and then act.
I'm not saying it ain't gonna stink, but I know that John spreads manure on the pasture down there next to the RV park. I don't see a lot of guys hooking up and pulling out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells very hard. It's very short.
It's Iowa. I get it. I do. Yeah. I kind of like going into Cedar Rapids and driving by ADM.
Yeah.
It stinks. And that's 365. So,
Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye for the postponement until we get a legal advice.
And
All right, folks.
thank you everyone for coming in.
Or this. I don't know if you can get it with CSR or not. And I don't have
So we may meet again. These are generic. I like better when we meet on the 7th.
Tell me about it. You don't know how much more.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm back.
Good to see you. Take care.
County attorney reads this and explains it to us three. Then we'll have it posted in our name.
And you might have a special meeting.
We'd rather have it
Open public, yeah.
More people would be on.
And next Tuesday, we probably open if they want to do it that night. Just saying.
And you'll be talking with county attorney.
Yeah.
The closest that we could possibly have is if it was posted today, it has to be posted for 24 hours before we can have the meeting.
Dave isn't gonna react that fast. I'm hoping to get one next Tuesday.
Commitments.
So look after you. Exactly.
Dave Thompson?
Dave Thompson.
No. In Vietnam?
He is.
Thanks, guys.
All right, watch the website, Charlie.
What's that?
Watch the website, the county website. Haley always posts it, by 9 o'clock Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I looked up the agenda last night.
You know, if
Said
not,
9:30.
call me, all right. Call me next Monday night. And I can tell you what's going on.
What's going on?
Yeah, don't be afraid to call me.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yep.
Bye, Barb.
And so we get paid the big bucks, guys.
On the run.
Well, I haven't been able to, I texted them.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason I didn't car
I know.
He's the one, so.
No sheriff? He wasn't there last night either.
No, he had a prior commitment last night at that meeting. And I reminded him
Okay.
last night when he left. And, cause he's the one that talked directly to her. I didn't. Well, whatever.
Do you need to table that? We might have to. We'll kill a little bit of time here on reports.
You want me to try to call you?
You got any reports then, Rick? Okay. How about you, Gary?
I went up to Central Iowa Detention Friday. And picture of their new building.
Hey, are you coming to the board meeting to discuss the power set?
And,
Come along with it.
Okay, well, you must know to stop that.
let's see here.
So you have it on your agenda for that power set.
This is more for you.
Alright, well,
This is the area that they cover, right there, green.
Okay.
They cover about half the counties in the state, don't they?
And then they get affiliates on top of it.
Yeah.
But he said, pay it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I talked to Ron, he's not gonna be able to attend, but his opinion is pay them out and we don't. I don't know the amount.
We're in reports. We'll come to that
Yep.
and go into closed session.
Okay.
It's really interesting for me to go up there and learn what's going on. Most of them, I'd say there was 15 of us there. The rest of them called in by phone. But it's quite a ways from most. It was about 80 miles from me to go up there. And I'll bet you there's some people that'd be over 100 miles.
Yeah, it's an hour and 15 up to an hour and 30 minutes. One way
You have a flat tire.
for me to go.
Sorry.
It's things like this that I really appreciate the Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's a mileage thing, it becomes a time issue.
Yeah.
There's so much time to travel.
That's all I had.
Thank you for attending that, Gary.
You're welcome.
Okay. And landfill, last Thursday night. I guess everything's running smooth, more or less there. We'll get on that one right away. Thursday morning, we had the Zoom for our cell phone, or not cell phone, our towers. Great time. And we got problems.
Is this something we can discuss in a closed
We
session?
can.
Well,
I mean,
it's
or
the deal with, if it's that tower side.
No,
No, it's not that one.
No, it's not
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, okay.
I talked to you, find my notes, here they are. Basically, the tower that we bought north by, Rogers Park is no good.
Not for the equipment that needs to go on it.
Yeah, they want to sell us a new tower, which is not part of the bid, the $4.2 million.
Oh, let me get this straight. They sold us this tower, but it ain't gonna work.
No, they sold us the tower and the ground.
Right, so we basically bought the ground. We would have needed a new tower in northwest Benton County somewhere. Anyway, the current Mount Auburn one we had was not gonna work either. So we were putting up a new tower somewhere there anyway. We were hoping this one would work, but the reality was we figured it wasn't going to, but at least we got the ground.
So you can put up a new tower on this side.
Yes.
That will work.
Yes. Yeah. And if I remember correct, there was a lease payment that was due that was substantial. We got that location, we got it waived when we bought the tower.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
it could have been, at least this is money that has been retained for the location. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, but that tower was not included in the bid. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the difference between the two towers, the self-supporting one is 252,000, and cable one is 150,000. So there's $100,000 difference between the self-supporting one and the cable. Okay. And like Scott asked, what's the difference in maintenance costs down the road since you got cables to check all the time? Well, they didn't have that maintenance agreement, how much that would cost. So that threw a kind of a monkey wrench into that.
Now, with the cables, would it require more ground?
We got the ground.
Okay,
Ground,
so it's a fit, we have enough
yeah,
ground.
but it's a higher maintenance cost since you got the
I get
cable.
that, yeah, but we don't have to acquire more
No.
property.
No, you don't fit.
Cover the
Actually, we even said they could build the new one around the old one, because we need the old one yet.
Yeah.
Cannot be shut down until the new system is up and running. We can work around that. The Van Horn Tower, south of town here, Tigers, it's not strong enough to hold the equipment. And that is not that old, 20 years, 25?
It's 2005, so, yeah, it's.
118,000 to refurbish that, so it's strong enough.
So they can refit that tower up.
Yeah.
Yes.
For 118,000.
Okay. So we're 250, 118, yeah.
L plane,
368, yeah.
not strong enough either.
Okay.
That beats that up. That's 67,000. So you're looking at $500,000 more for this project, which ain't even really got off the ground except a bunch of paperwork.
But from what I hear you saying, the good news is they don't have to be replaced. You can beef up a tower for $6,000 or $7,000. That sounds like a bargain compared to $250,000.
Yes.
If you go to self-standing. Otherwise, you have $149,000 for a cable.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want that.
And the one up in Rogers is cable.
Yeah, that's a, excuse me, yes, that's a guide tower now. That's why I wanted to know the cost difference over like a 20-year lifespan of maintenance on a guide tower versus a self-standing tower. We might spend $100,000 more up front for the self-standing, but we might save that over 20 years not having the increased maintenance. I don't know, that's why I want the numbers.
So last but not least, the sheriff tower, up here at the sheriff's office. They ain't got that figured out yet. They don't think that's strong enough either. But they ain't got us a price yet on that one.
So why have we went this long thinking these towers were adequate?
Thank you. I asked that question. There were no Raycom officials on that call. They're supposed to have an answer for me when we meet again in 2 weeks, so I asked that very question. How do you put a contract out in front of the Board of Supervisors of the county that this project is going to be $7.2 million when you didn't even know our towers were good enough to hold your equipment? How do you do that? I don't do that in business. So,
$437,000.
yes, it is.
Not counting the
Not
sheriff.
counting the sheriff's.
Yes.
And if that can be beefed up, where's that half million?
Or you can use ARPA funds to keep that again and then take away from others.
Or are we going to tell them to sharpen their pencil and honor the $7.2 million
Because she rushed
contract?
us to do that in order to save us money in the long run too, remember?
Yes.
I agree with Scott, you should have to.
Yeah. I don't know how you be in business not knowing not knowing the structure you're going to put your equipment on and bid a price when you don't know if anything's good enough. I don't know how that works in the business world. How does that work in the business world?
Oh, surcharge. Or loss of contract.
They either have a
It's not
lot
like we
of
go back
employees
out
or
for
they're.
our general obligation debt again.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They should have engineered these towers before they even put a contract in front of us.
What was that? What was that Jill bond for?
No, we only bonded 5 something, 5
Buy something because we're gonna use some of the ARPA funds.
offset.
Yeah.
the
I
ARPA.
think it was 5.2.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
5.2.
5.2.
We designated two.
That money's
Two
already
of
in
it
the
out of
bank.
ARPA to eat the difference.
We got the money. Yeah, the 5.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, right, they're pushing to get everything done so they can get their first.
Yeah.
They already got $700,000, $800,000.
Yes,
for
for
the
signing the
first-
contract, when you sign the DDR,
Yeah.
the design, the
So we have already,
design review, there's another payment.
we've got a signed contract,
Yeah,
Yes, you do.
and they don't understand what we need yet? How can they sign a contract when they don't know what we need?
Well, they know the equipment we need, they just now have found out that our current towers aren't strong enough to hold their equipment without modifications.
but their contract was for the equipment and the
Yes,
installation
it
of
was.
the equipment. And so the towers really are not part of that contract.
Yeah.
But they did
Yeah, yes,
that, they
they were.
reviewed those tower sites.
Yes, they were,
So-
because the tower was out here, the new one that we're gonna talk about in
Right.
closed session,
Right.
and the one at Norway. Them two are two new towers.
And they knew
And that
about the
was
belt
spelled
line.
out. Knew, yes. That was spelled out. Yeah. But the others weren't. No. I think we're over the barrel on that one. I think, that creek and no paddle.
The ship crack?
That'd be the one. I guess me and
I've
Scott
been up
are on
there
the
quite a
same
few
page,
times.
that you need to sharpen your pencils and.
Well, because they knew even about the belt line one needed to be raised. I mean, they knew all that ahead.
Well, they were looking at the wrong tower on that one.
Oh, I'll see.
When they first said that, they were looking at the wrong tower, which, anyway.
So, if we went to ARPA funds, who gets the plug pulled?
That's what I mean, you have all these other departments banking on that.
Well, they ain't all spoken for yet,
No.
but I mean,
Haven't even got the
we've
second
been-
deposit yet.
we've been fairly conservative. Which You know, is we- good. Yeah, we're That not makes- like a bunch of drunken sailors on a weekend pass. Sure, as one neighbor called it.
Sounds like.
However, after this meeting.
Who's buying?
But that's where we're at. At least me and Scott, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, every project has unknowns and change orders, but we try to keep them to a minimum, obviously. But to me, knowing whether a tower is good enough for the system you're proposing should not be an unknown. That should have been engineered first, but we'll have that discussion with them.
It's a good discussion to have because I was forewarned that this company was good at change orders. See, my problem is what I've been arguing for the last month. You had a structural engineer, he's saying that it's not strong enough. I look at it, they stood in the 150 mile an hour winds, and we didn't lose nothing on the Dre show. But is this equipment
Bigger.
It's.
We only have 3-foot microwave dishes on any of our towers now, these are all 6-foot. So it's more than double the wind load and ice load. It goes exponentially. So that's the issue.
Okay.
They're engineering for the bigger dishes.
I understand, yeah, but since they were, like you said, if they knew they were gonna put 6-foot dishes there, they should know what kind of structure it's gonna require.
I would think so.
We beat that one, yeah.
So, we gotta go into closed session?
Not yet, the other thing is, they had EMA last night, that turned out.
Yes, it was. Especially for July, that was good.
Yep, 9 people. And, oh, I had a question. Go. On that night,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna, yeah, came up, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, find the page, sorry.
Yeah.
You had a $9,000 expenditure. EMA has material gap analysis.
Oh, yeah, that's the regional LEPC, the 9-county LEPC that I'm the treasurer for, and it runs through our budget. It's passed through grant money. Yeah,
Okay.
grant money coming in, and then we spend it through our agency, which this is last year of that though, because another county's gonna be taking it over since I'm gonna be leaving in 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, good question. That's, it's all grant pass through.
Maybe.
Maybe what? Yeah, it could be sooner, you're right.
Has the board ever declined a
Won't
resignation?
accept it.
Yeah.
And you're close to the sheriff, remember that.
Yeah, right. He's speechless now.
I guess when they don't show up for work for 3 weeks in a row, get fired.
Vacation.
Okay, you wanna give them, or I'll give them an update on, sirens last night?
On the what?
Sirens?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can quick. So, the offer to the 3 communities were first. Shelburne's accepted 2, that's already done. And they're under maintenance with the siren guys. Atkins has now accepted the 4 that were recommended to them. And, they will, so that paperwork's already done. They own them now and are responsible for maintenance. And Urbana is still waiting. They're trying to connect with the 2 siren guys. They're playing phone tag and email tag here. Because Urbana was recommended to keep 4. I think they're probably going to, but they just want to know their ongoing maintenance costs before they commit to saying, yes, we want these. So I'm gonna go ahead then and put the letter out to the rest of the communities in the county, knowing full well which ones are gonna be kept by the 3 cities that were already under them, offering any sirens. It sounds like right now there's 5 communities that each want one, or at least are interested. And they kind of know, I've talked to them all informally about, here's your proposed cost to move it and to change the radio and have it reprogrammed, so they know what they're in for. But it's still far less than a brand new siren installation.
Sure.
So probably there will be 5 more of them then that will be taken out from the closest to them and taken to cities. And then I've already been meeting with Lynn County. They have a monthly siren committee meeting, and I just zoom in. And they basically told me at the last meeting that however many sirens are left in Benton County that our communities don't want, they will take all the rest. And they will move them out and take them over to Lake County.
Wow.
So we're done.
That includes the sirens that are out in the rural areas?
Yeah.
All
of them. There's probably gonna be 21 or 20 remaining in the system that won't be covering one of our cities or move to a city, and they will take them all. So we're done.
So are they gonna pay us something for them, or
No, that's it.
They actually gave them to us first, because the system was given to them. And then they gave us Benton County sirens, so we could transfer them to our cities at no cost, and then we will just transfer them back. And they will be responsible for the removal, poles and all, so there won't even be poles left in the county right away when they're done. So
well, some of the sirens are mounted on light poles, aren't they?
they're all on poles.
Yeah.
They're all on wooden poles.
But there's other things on the poles.
No, nope, absolutely
By
not.
themselves, or solar power.
They're solar powered, they're not even hooked to electricity. They're all solar battery charged.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Take the siren head off, pull the pole, and down the road you go. Done.
That's it for
That's it.
reports.
Yep.
Make a motion that we go into closed session to discuss radio tower purchase, or radio tower site purchase.
According to code 21.51J. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?